woman has been abused, it's very difficult for her to ever regain herself again. God has to intervene to help an abused woman to become what God created a woman to be. Not to think of a young man being abused. A young man came to me one day. He's a Muslim. And he said, "Brother Minister, I was abused by my father. And he said, I want you to tell me, why did Allah allow my father to do that to me? Because now faith is being tried. Because he put it square on to God. Since God can prevent circumstances, why didn't he intervene and protect me from the lust in the heart of my father?" I said, "Son, I can't tell you what is in the mind of God unless he shows it to me. But it could be that the pipeline from school to prison," did you hear me? Yes, sir. A pipeline that so many young men have a prison experience. Now, more young women are having a prison experience. And when a young man with a fat behind goes into prison, the older ones say, "That's going to be my bitch." See, this real talk. And I'm saying this to you teachers and you preachers. Don't you tickle these children's ears with some bullshit about God. I'm not being vulgar. Faith in God is a requisite for success in life. Because whatever gift you have, you didn't give it to yourself. It is God who gave it to you. And once you lose faith in the giver of life and the giver of gifts, where do you go from there? Young men in prison come out with their pants sagging because they're not allowed belts in prison. So you walk with part of your rear end showing. And to a freak, that's beautiful. And the chemistry of the pork that you eat. Because a pig is an animal that sodomizes. God damn boy. And you know you are big pig eaters. Most of your diseases are due to malnutrition, the wrong kind of foods, the wrong kind of drinks, and your mind is being fed the wrong kind of thoughts. So that college is a cesspool. Talk to me. You know damn well what I'm saying is right. I love my gay brothers and my lesbian sisters. I'm not here to judge. I'm only here to tell you that what you think you are, you may not be, because the chemistry of the food that you eat is producing thoughts to make you into what you think you are that you really are not. Listen, listen, listen. No woman can be a man. And you can have all the testosterone levels that you want. You look hard as a rock. But when you meet a real man, I'm not talking about a punk that looked like real. I'm talking about a real man. And a real man reflects God, the Creator. When you meet that kind of man, all that old stuff that you've been experiencing by no good men sinks into insignificance. You are beautiful people, but a beautiful people that have been victimized and abused. College professors. I went to a black school. And I was, a very strong young man. The love of my life was living in Boston. And I was down in North Carolina. A lot of fine-looking women down there now. And most of the brothers that came from New Jersey, New York, and Massachusetts, and other places, they were looking for them fine girls. And the fine girls may have had a boyfriend back in somewhere in North Carolina, but they were looking for a nice young man too. But I wasn't looking for nobody. I had what I wanted. Interesting. And I looked at that college. I never bought a book in the 3 years that I was in college because my high school education was so superior. Let me tell you what I learned as a student in Boston in a segregated environment until I went to high school. I had Latin in the 7th grade at Boston Latin School, the oldest public school in America, from which some of the founding fathers of this country graduated. I was in that high school. It was racist to the core. But Latin informed my English. So when I went to English High, which is the other part of the Harvard-Yale experience, we're natural enemies, English High, Latin High, in football and track and whatnot. But those children in the 7th grade, they were learning Greek, they were learning Latin. So by the time I got to English High, I had Latin, 2 years under my belt. Then I took 3rd year Latin, 4th year Latin. A dead language, but it's the root of English. That and Greek. I had 2 years of Spanish, 2 years of French, 1 year of German. I'm just a high school boy. I had algebra, plane geometry, solid geometry, trigonometry, and calculus. High school boy. I had ancient history, medieval history, modern history, and American history. High school boy. I knew all of the countries on the earth, their capitals, and what they produced coming out of high school. But I went south so I could feel what my brothers and sisters in the South have been experiencing all their lives. And what I found was a tragedy. I met teachers who were giving out degrees in screwology. Fine-looking girls coming to the school for an education, and the teacher preyed on these girls. Not prayed for them, preyed on them, and then gave them an A or a B so that they could go out in a segregated environment and teach screwology to children. It's the kind of crap that I found in college. So I spoke out against it. I wanted to be an omega. I was a lamp, and all of a sudden, when I was on Secret Pro, getting ready to go on Open Pro, somebody dropped a black ball on me. Because even as a 19-year-old, I was just a young version of the man that's shaking up the world today with the truth from my mouth. So I'm going to lay this challenge out to the students. Don't take courses that have no value in nation building if you are the Joshua generation. The Joshua generation is the generation that God used to build a nation for God's glory. A nation that Moses envisioned that Joshua fulfilled. So when you go back to school, and by the way, I was at Clark College a few years ago. I was invited there by the students in engineering. At the end of my lecture, the young lady that invited me introduced me to her professor. And here's what he said to me. This is the last year that engineering will be taught at Clark. And when I went to the president and said, "Why are you cutting engineering?" He said, "Let the white people concern themselves with engineering." And at the same time, the International School of International Affairs, which black people are an international people. We are all over the planet. And they cut that out. So I asked myself, what is Clark? What is happening? So the administrators are being paid to make you a useless person that when they give you the degree, you can't use it to build a future for yourself. Agriculture is the basis of every other discipline. How many of you are Christians? Would you raise your hand, please? Don't be bashful. Come on now. Well, I'll raise mine. Go get your Genesis in the Bible. And after God made all these people, the heavens, the earth, the water, the this, the that, the animals, he said, quote, according to the Bible, and there was no man to till the ground. So the first profession was farming, because everybody eats. Sociologist, do you eat? Lawyer, doctor, engineer, scientist, do you eat? Problem with you is you're eating the wrong stuff because they've killed farming. So farming is now done by big corporations. The chemically ordered seeds by Monsanto, DuPont, seeds that cannot reproduce. So that every year you got to go back to the same seed producer to buy more seeds, because the seeds of the crop that you planted, you can't plant it because it can't produce. What effect does that have on your sperm, brother? Right now, they're looking at men and they see that the sperm count in the male is being reduced. They tried this on alligators in the Everglades. They put estrogen in the water, and the penis of the alligator started shrinking, and the sperm count went down. Now, see, the pharmaceutical companies are agents of Satan. Now, they give you something that makes the penis small. Then they develop a pill. You're having a problem? Bigger is better. I'm not trying to be funny. But yeah, this is being real. So you're now chemicalized. A young man of 40, when your grandfather was 90 and could have an erection. And there was no such thing as Viagra or Cialis for grandpa. Grandpa just ate better. He grew good food and ate it. So grandpa was not worried about dysfunctional erectile deficiencies and all of that. But you in your 30s having a little problem. Oh, you having a problem? Well, take this pill. And if your erection lasts for more than 4 hours, call the doctor. I didn't mean for this to turn into something of a joke. But you are being attacked in so many different ways, students. So choose a profession that lends itself to nation building. Because if you are the Joshua generation, you got to build the kingdom. That's your job. Not looking to white folk because they're not going to be in the kingdom. Maybe 1 or 2, maybe 3 or 4, maybe 10 or 20. But first, they got to pay for what they've done. Wait. And I know you're a lawyer for their defense. But, minister, see, they weren't here when all of that evil was being done. Well, they're right. They weren't here. Of course they benefited. But that don't stop the principle of justice. Just because you weren't involved, but your daddy was. Your granddaddy was. Your great-granddaddy was. Your grandmother was, in that place where Django visited. Yeah, see, somebody got to pay for what has been done. I don't care nothing about no court. There's a bigger court that you got to answer to. You must reap what you sow. And as we said this morning, as thou hast done, past tense, so shall it be done, future tense, when the time of harvest for what you've sown comes. Your children got to pay for your foolishness. So don't you think that you can go on living this stupid life that you live and you're not passing something on to your children and your grandchildren. Any Muslims that's in the house, in the janazah prayer over the dead, when you say, "Oh Allah, do not deprive us of his or her reward, or cause us to fall into a trial after him or her." See, you are to live a righteous life. And when you live a good life, a righteous life, you set up good for your children, for your grandchildren, as they have set up evil for their seed. When Moses said to Pharaoh, "This day I set before you 2 signs, one of life and blessing, and one of death and cursing." Listen to these words. Choose life, that you and your seed may live. These people have set up death for their children by the evil that they have practiced not only on us, but on dark people all over the world. They've got to pay for that. So when you have a little break, do you smoke a little crack? I don't know whether cannabis is legal here, but in Colorado and even in Washington now, you can, fix up a blunt and get busy. Now look at this. Do you know that what you ingest affects your sperm? If you've ever seen a spider spin a web that is not symmetrical, something is wrong with that spider. Something got into it. that interfered with its nature to make a symmetrical web. What you do today will affect your children in the future. In order for you to be a strong woman, you must protect your eggs. And you cannot protect your eggs if you don't protect your health with what you eat, what you drink, and what you think. Now, what teachers are teaching you like this? Are you sure? That's why the mosque is a good place to be, because the education that you're receiving can be made useful only with the practical teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And I say this to you, in closing, you are indeed the Joshua generation. But you have to meet Joshua. You have to get to know a man that has been made a man to build in the promised land. You are that generation. You're the best generation we ever produced. You are. Boys and girls, men and women. But now you have to make that change in your life. I made a change. In my documentary, inshallah, that may be out this year, my life's journey through music. I was an entertainer. I was a man with a very good voice. I played the violin. I danced. I wrote plays and wrote songs. That was my life. Until I met a man. And when I met this man, Elijah Muhammad and Malcolm X, I went home one night, and in the night I had a vision. And in that vision were two doors. One of those doors, over it was the word success. And there was a mound of gold and diamonds that I knew I could achieve if I stayed with my music. But the next door had over it Islam and a black veil. I didn't know much about Islam, but I was asked to choose between what I could see with my talent I could have achieved, but I chose the door with that black veil. And when I chose that door, here I am today. Wait a minute. Known all over the world for being a voice for the voiceless. A strong man. A good man. That the enemy calls an anti-Semite. I've never been a hater of the Jewish people, but I am a hater of what they did to black people to become rich, powerful, and influential. You gotta know what happened to you. You are right now suffering from what happened to you. You're at the AU campus, right? Years ago, white people would scout those colleges for talent, for the NBA and the NFL. Yeah. And the National and American League in baseball. They don't hardly come there anymore. Because all the talent has left the historically black colleges and universities and is now in the big white universities on BS education. But they can play ball, they can, oh my God, they play football, they're masters in track. And so everybody comes out to see them. But the money goes to the university. And the education that they receive is not an education that generally they can use. There has to be a revolution, a change. So when you go back to school, the administrators, you have to ask your president and the board of trustees that we want an education that will allow us to build a nation. So every few years we don't have to come back begging for justice and jobs. In the 40s, what did you go to Washington for? Justice and jobs. In the 60s, we marched on Washington, and what did we ask for? Justice and jobs. We came back 20 years later in 1983. What was our cry? Justice and jobs. You celebrated 50 years of the March on Washington, and you still were crying out for justice and jobs. He don't have any jobs for you. This October will be the 20th anniversary of the Million Man March. We're going back to Washington. First time we went, the theme was, we didn't bother with the government. Atonement, reconciliation, responsibility. We atone to God and to our women for not being the men that we should be. We as men decided that day that we would be better men, stronger men, wiser men for our boys and our girls. Some of those men went back to the women that gave them children and began at least giving child support. What kind of a man are you? Hiding in the nation. Talking about you a FOI. The hell you are. If you got a woman out here pregnant and you're not working to give her and your child what it needs, you're no FOI. You're not even a real man. Because a real man provides for what a real man produces. You got to change. We got to change. Agriculture and the sciences of what we got to go back and ask for. Chemistry, biology, every form of engineering, chemical engineering, civil engineering, mechanical engineering. We have to become engineers to solve problems in business, in mechanics, in civil life, it's engineering. That's why you don't have a job. That's why there's a pipeline to prison. That's why we're messed up, because somebody was engineering our destruction. And that's why Paul said, we war not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers and the rulers of the darkness of this world. All the enemies are up at the top, and they're working a work on us and our leaders. Unfortunately, they only go as far as the enemy will allow them. So they'll complain, and their complaints are genuine, but it doesn't go far enough. It's land that we need. It's land that we want. And don't you think that we shouldn't ask for what is rightly ours? Claim the country. Don't just claim one side of Atlanta. Claim the whole city. It's yours. You see all these beautiful buildings that they're building? Where did they get the money from? See, when they work you for 310 years for no pay, it became rich. You picked the cotton. You baled the cotton. They took the cotton and sold it to their brother, who turned cotton into lint and then turned lint into cloth and began selling us back our labor. So you had to go to them for your pants, go to them for your shirts, go to them for your towels, go to them for your pillowcases and your sheets. They got us coming and going. We need land. So we're going back to Washington this time. Elijah Muhammad said, one day I'm going to call a march. He was looking at the silliness in our faces as we were marching like we're going to a party and a picnic. Justice is no party. Justice is not a picnic. When you want justice, you got to be willing to do what it takes to get it. We have a government here that is supposed to fight for our lives when their citizens take our lives. And Eric Holder said, well, with Darren Wilson, we just couldn't reach the threshold to charge him. And then he turned around and sent a report scathing that the police in Ferguson were giving black men and women tickets, forcing them to pay for little teeny things that helped them to be able to pay their bills. And the city administrator, after they made several $1 million off of poor black people, said, next year, can you get 10% more? That's on you. How long can you take it? How long will we take it? See, I want to go to Washington, and I need your help. I want to go to put the Muslim program before Congress. I want to go because we built this country. Our sweat and our blood. We paid for every square inch of it. We fought in the Revolutionary War. We fought in the Civil War. We fought in the War of 1812. We fought in the Spanish-American War. We fought in World War I. We fought in World War II. We fought in Korea. We fought in Vietnam. We died in Iraq and Afghanistan. For what? Not anymore. Let's put something before this government. The theme is justice or else. We're not going to play. We're not going to frolic. We're not going looking for a woman or a man. Justice is what we seek. I close with these words from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the greatest teacher that ever came to a people. Oh. He said, from Isaiah the prophet, listen to this scripture. Justice stands afar off, and equity cannot enter, because truth has fallen in the streets. Why does justice stand afar off? Because justice demands that truth must be spoken. And the person who speaks for justice can't half step. I was born for an hour like this. And if you are part of the Joshua generation, then you come on and walk with me. We want land. Elijah Muhammad says, without truth, there's no justice. And where there's no justice, there's no peace. So when you come and speak truth to power, and you still don't have justice, say that again. Because you never had it in the first place. Elijah Muhammad says, what justice seeks, or what the truth seeks, if the forces of falsehood are so powerful that your truth does not move them to give you what truth seeks, which is justice, then you have to do something else. And what is that something else? He said, you got to move the forces of falsehood physically. Fight the forces of falsehood. Drive them out. And that's why God says in the scriptures, vengeance is mine. You're not up to the battle. It's going to demand something from us. But you're not up for it. And you know your enemy looks so powerful to you that even thinking about moving the forces of falsehood stop you right there. Well, how are we going to move them? They're so powerful. That's why God said, shall the prey be taken from the mighty, and the lawful captive be delivered? Then it answers its own. Yes, the prey will be taken. Why? Because God has come now to take up the battle. And let me tell you something about the God that I represent. He owns and masters all the forces of nature. That's why you're experiencing weather like you've never seen it before. See what a little rain and a little snow did to you here in Atlanta? You ain't seen nothing yet. This whole city could be shaken down in the twinkling of an eye with just a powerful earthquake. I